Welcome back as we conclude the section on the throne of God. I want to just highlight a few areas on worship. And whenever the living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to Him who is seated on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before Him who is seated on the throne and worship Him who lives forever and ever. They cast their crowns before the throne, saying, "Worthy are you, O Lord and God, to receive glory and honor and power. For you created all things, and by your will they existed and were created." It says that whenever the living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to Him. Now, who are the living creatures? We looked at it in the last video that they were celestial beings. They were angelic beings who would be bringing worship before the Lord. And if you remember, they had eyes on their wings, and so their eyes were always focused on the throne. Their eyes were focused on the Lord. And when our eyes are focused on the Lord, our worship naturally is about Him. When Isaiah had a glimpse of the glory of God, he saw himself in relationship to the throne of God, to the presence of God. And that's what happens when we come into worship, and when we see and when we understand the throne of God, we immediately realize who we are and where we are in relationship to His mighty awesomeness, His splendor, His majesty. So one of the key areas I want to highlight in this section is that worship is always about Him. Worship is always about God and who He is, His character, His majesty, His power, His glory, but it is always about Him. Worship is never about how we feel, but it is about Him. See, the focus of worship, when it begins to turn towards us, it becomes idolatry. But when worship is about God, and the focus and the goal of worship is God, then we are on the right track. See, to understand worship, we must also understand the throne of God. We must understand God and who He is. And I want to encourage, if you are a worship leader, if you are someone who is involved in worship, it is compulsory, it is essential that you have an understanding of the throne of God. But I believe even for every believer, when we come to the understanding and realization about the throne of God, our worship changes, because it is always about Him. And so therefore always remember that to understand true worship, we must understand the throne of God. I will repeat that again. To understand true worship, we must understand the throne of God. We are also told about the 24 elders. And as we again looked at the last section, we really don't know who the 24 elders are. But we see them doing something very specific. That whenever the 4 living creatures worship, the 24 elders, they fall down and they cast their crowns before the throne. See, that talks to me about the worthiness of God. And what they are saying, what the 24 elders are saying, is that we are not even worthy to stand before the throne. And we bow before Him in awe, in reverence, in bringing our worship, our sacrifice of worship. And we cannot wear our crown before the King of Kings. And so therefore, in all humility, in all submission, they cast their crowns. Notice the word there. They don't just leave the crown on the side, but they literally cast their crowns. And the picture that comes to my mind is when a fisherman casts his net. He throws that net out And what the 24 elders were doing, was they were casting their crowns before the throne in all humility. I believe that worship creates a humble heart. Worship creates a humble heart. Why? Because we see God for who He is. The more revelation we have about the throne, the more humble we can be even in our worship. Because pride exalts oneself. We cannot exalt ourselves before the throne of God, because His majesty and His dominion, His splendor, His authority is so great, it's so powerful, that we can only go on our knees, we can fall prostrate before Him in all humility and say, Lord, I cast my crown before you. And they were saying, Lord, you are worthy. You're worthy, O God, to receive all glory, honor, and power, because you created all things. And they were worshipping the Creator God. And He said, by your will they existed and were created. So they were acknowledging the creative power of God. But in this section we also see them acknowledging the eternal existence of God. I want to say one more thing about our worship. When we come into that presence, when we come to worship God, we have to give Him our attention. Imagine if you go before a dignitary and you pull out your mobile phone and you start texting your friends, or you start doing Facebook or Instagram. How dishonoring that would be. So when we come even before the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, we have to give Him our wholehearted attention. When we give Him our wholehearted attention, He is able to minister to us. He is able to cause His presence to surround us and to touch us and to heal us and to restore us. So often we go into a time of worship and our mind can be somewhere else. We may be physically there, but we may be mentally somewhere else. But I want to encourage you, my friends, when we come into that time of worship, don't just think this is a song, but our worship is before our God. Our worship is to the God that we serve. So therefore, always give Him full attention. That is why even the 4 living creatures, their eyes are always on Him. Now, one more area I want to just touch on are the worship songs that we sing. So often, and especially in this season, sometimes we see songs that talk about my feeling. It talks about what I'm feeling. Imagine you go before the throne of God and you say, oh, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm feeling. Oh, wow, this is what I'm feeling. Guess what? You've suddenly turned the worship away from God to yourself. There are songs that prepare you for worship. But the ultimate worship, the true worship songs that we sing, have to be about the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, who is worthy of all praise, who reigns in splendor and majesty and dominion forever and ever.